Good evening, I'm Cynthia Ng, and here are the top stories for tonight. South Korea's Myung in first face-to-face with Trump, trade and security top of the agenda. And China's mega dam in Tibet raises water security fears in India. That and more coming up on AWANI International. South Korean President Myung is in Washington today for his first face-to-face summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. They are expected to finalize last month's trade deal, which cut U.S. tariffs on Seoul from 25% to 15%. That includes $100 billion in energy purchases and $350 billion investment into the American economy. South Korea has earlier agreed to invest $150 billion out of the overall investment package on shipbuilding cooperation, with more details expected at the summit. But this is more than trade. Trump is also pressing to reshape the long-standing military alliance, urging South Korea to take on a bigger share of its defense costs and free up the 28,500 American troops stationed on the peninsula. Talks between the two leaders may also cover nuclear cooperation and North Korea's strategy. China's construction of a new mega dam in Tibet is sparking serious concerns in India. Officials in Delhi warn that the project could slash water flow on the Brahmaputra by up to 85% during the dry season, threatening agriculture and water security in the region.
Beijing has begun constructing a mega dam on the Yarlung Zambo in Tibet, which could become the world's largest hydroelectric project once completed. India fears that Beijing's control over the transboundary river could pose a long-term strategic threat. In response, New Delhi is fast-tracking its own Upper Siang Dam project, despite heavy local oppositions over environmental impacts and community displacement. The Brahmaputra originates from Tibet's Angsi Glacier, sustaining more than 100 million people downstream in China, India and Bangladesh. Indian authorities have been planning projects to control the flow since the early 2000s, but fierce resistance from residents has slowed progress.
Stay tuned for more after the break.
Apakah maksud sebenar perpaduan? Jom kita tengok sendiri.
I inspired lah dengan apa yang jadi hari ni. Aku rasa kan, kena buat lagu lah.
Inilah kita sehati bersama.
Ada yang perdebatan bahawa GST perlu dikembalikan semula kerana ada yang mempertikaikan bahawa SST itu tidak efektif.
Isu buruh kanak-kanak bukan sahaja dalam bentuk fizikal tetapi juga bentuk moden yang lebih licik dan juga terselindung.
Kita tengok buruh kanak-kanak dan ada juga buruh paksa kanak-kanak.
Kumpulan FB dikenali sebagai grup budak-budak sekolah rendah yang didakwa menyebarkan gambar remaja perempuan tidak senonoh telah pun ditutup.
Welcome back. Israeli strikes on Nasser Hospital in Gaza on Monday killed at least 20 people, including 4 journalists. According to Gaza officials, they are Hussam al-Masri from Reuters, Mariam Abu Daga from the Associated Press, Al Jazeera journalist Muhammad Salam, and Moaz Abu Taha from NBC. Another Reuters journalist, Hatim Khalid, was wounded in the attack. The Israeli military said it was responsible for the strikes, adding that it regrets any harm to uninvolved individuals and does not target journalists. The tragic incident came just 2 weeks after 6 journalists were killed in another Israeli attack near Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Over 240 Palestinian journalists have been killed by Israeli fire in Gaza since the war started. South Korea is moving to mend ties with China, pledging closer economic cooperation. A special envoy from Seoul met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Sunday, saying that both sides should work to restore relations that have been strained in recent years. The envoy, former Parliament Speaker Park Byung-seok, delivered a letter from President Lee Jae-myung to Chinese President Xi Jinping and extended an invitation to attend October's APEC summit. Relations between the two countries soured in 2023 after former President Yoon Suk-yeol criticized Beijing's policies on Taiwan and human rights. Park said the new government would deepen strategic cooperation with China while maintaining its security alliance with the United States. Wang Yi, meanwhile, welcomed the outreach, noting Beijing's support for developing ties. Both sides also agreed to push for concrete progress on trade and supply chain cooperation. New Zealand Post is halting most deliveries to the United States due to uncertainty over new American tariffs. The Postal Service says suspension of deliveries started August 21st, ahead of Washington's 15% tariff on packages that takes effect on the 29th. It announced that only essential letters and documents, such as passports and legal papers, will continue to reach the United States. Postal carriers in India, Germany, France, Belgium, Austria and Denmark have also paused services after the Trump administration confirmed tax exemptions on small packages would end on August 29th. The U.S. first announced tariffs in April, but most measures are only coming into force this month after delays and negotiations. New Zealand Post said it was working quickly to adjust its services and aim to restore deliveries as soon as possible. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says ties with the United States are unsolvable and Tehran will never bow to Washington's pressure. His comments come just days after Iran and European powers agreed to resume talks over Tehran's nuclear enrichment, with a new round scheduled in Geneva on Tuesday.
France, Britain and Germany had warned they would reimpose UN sanctions by the end of August if no deal was reached. But Tehran dismissed the threat as baseless both legally and politically. The nuclear negotiations were suspended after US and Israeli airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites in June. The conflict erupted just as Tehran and Washington were set for a sixth round of nuclear talks. United States Vice President J.D. Vance says Russia has made significant concessions toward a negotiated settlement in Ukraine, signaling potential progress despite no clear end to the conflict. According to him, Russian President Vladimir Putin has acknowledged that Kyiv will receive security guarantees to protect against future Russian aggression. Speaking on NBC's Meet the Press, Vance added that Russia had abandoned its initial goal of installing a puppet regime in Kiev. He also confirmed that Russia now accepted guarantees for Ukraine's territorial integrity. On Friday, US President Donald Trump renewed his threat to sanction Russia if no peace progress was made within 2 weeks. Vance clarified the measures would be applied selectively, noting new sanctions alone are unlikely to secure a Russian ceasefire. He said the administration's goal is to reintegrate Russia into the global economy if it ends the war, while keeping it isolated if attacks continue. Germany's finance minister and vice-chancellor Lars Klingbeil is in Kiev, reaffirming Berlin's strong support for Ukraine. Speaking in the Ukrainian capital, Klingbeil told Russian President Vladimir Putin to have no illusions about Germany's commitment, describing Germany as Ukraine's second largest supporter in the world and the biggest in Europe. He called on Moscow to show genuine interest in a peace process, stressing that a ceasefire and reliable security guarantees are essential for any lasting agreement. Klingbeil's visit comes as US President Donald Trump pushes for a swift end to the conflict, prompting concerns in Kyiv and among allies that any deal could favor Moscow. Meanwhile, European leaders, including France and the UK, have discussed deploying troops as part of a coalition of the willing to secure Ukraine after a ceasefire. Germany has provided more than 50 billion euros in support since the war began in 2022, underlining its role as a Central European backer of Ukraine.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has voiced support for strong security guarantees for Ukraine. Speaking from Kiev, he also told President Volodymyr Zelensky that Canada would not rule out sending troops under such a framework. Carney's visit to Kiev on Sunday marked his first since taking office in March. He joined Zelensky for an Independence Day ceremony in Sofia Square. Carney also confirmed $2 billion Canadian in military aid, which includes drones, ammunition and armoured vehicles, with deliveries expected as early as September. Both countries also signed a joint defence production deal to expand cooperation and boost supply chain resilience for defence products. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has defended the EU's trade pact with the US, saying failure to secure a deal would have only benefited Europe's rivals, Russia and China. She calls the agreement, sealed last week, a choice for stability over escalating the trade war.
The pact caps most US tariffs on EU goods at 15%, including cars and pharmaceuticals. Von der Leyen stressed the EU had won a unique outcome, a single 15% ceiling, unlike the layered tariffs Washington applied elsewhere. She also highlighted Brussels' push to diversify trade, citing deals with Mexico, Mercosur, and a pact with India to be finalized this year. Critics argue the trade deal risks weakening Europe's credibility as a defender of rules-based trade. On Sunday, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that Europe must seek new partners, warning that the US may no longer play by global trade rules.
Cambodia's parliament has passed a law that could strip citizenship from anyone convicted of treason. The move is seen as part of a broader crackdown on opponents of the long-ruling Cambodian People's Party, or CPP.
The new measure was approved by 120 of 125 CPP-dominated lawmakers. It targets anyone accused of treason or colluding with foreign owners or plotting against Cambodian interests. Since the Supreme Court banned the main opposition party in 2017, more than 100 opposition figures have faced mass trials, many jailed in absentia. Prominent politicians have fled the country to avoid arrest. Human rights groups and Western governments, including the US, say the crackdown has effectively eliminated political competition, leaving the CPP in near total control.
Bangladesh says it cannot mobilize more resources for the 1.3 million Rohingya refugees living in the country. Chief Advisor Dr. Muhammad Yunus says hosting the refugees has strained Bangladesh's economy, environment and governance.
Dr. Yunus' remarks come on the 8th anniversary of more than 700,000 Rohingya arriving in Bangladesh over just a few days, turning Cox's Bazar into the world's largest refugee settlement. Half of the refugees are children, most fleeing a 2017 military crackdown in Myanmar that the UN described as ethnic cleansing. Earlier attempts at repatriation in 2018 and 2019 failed amid fears among refugees of further persecution. Dr. Yunus urged the international community to draft a practical roadmap for their return home to Myanmar.
That wraps up AWANI International tonight. Stay tuned for more reports on the rivalries, strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more and be sure to follow our social media accounts. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching. Good night.